It's a Christmas miracle, ladies and gentlemen. Rika has made her way back to the pages of Majulo. Now listen, we all knew that at some point Rika was...
Rika is officially back, and Jujutsu Kaisen fans are already split straight down the middle, not because they don't understand what's happening, but because they understand exactly what it could mean. This isn't just a cool callback. This isn't just fan service. Rika's return fundamentally challenges one of the most emotionally important moments in the entire JJK story. And whether this decision is genius or disastrous depends on one uncomfortable question. Fans don't want to answer. Should some things stay gone?
Obviously going to reappear. Yuta's ring and his connection to Rika has been passed down through the family from a grandfather to a granddaughter and then handed over to a grandson. Literally, the first thing that this sequel to JJK talks about is Yuta's ring, and therefore the likelihood of Rika making a bold entrance into 2086 seemed pretty high. But it's happened. It has now canonically happened in Chapter 17 of Majulo. And not only is Rika back, but she's back in a way we've never seen her before, popping down from heaven to help Tsurugi out in his battle against Maru. But that's not all we get in this chapter. We also get some exposition about Yuka and Tsurugi's father. We get a little look into the relationship that Yuji had with the Gojo clan, and we get a canonical confirmation that heaven exists in the JJK universe, and that everybody up there is constantly watching what's happening down on Earth.
When Jujutsu Kaisen 0 ended, Rika's release wasn't just a plot resolution. It was emotional closure. It was the culmination of Yuta's trauma, guilt, and growth. Rika letting go symbolized acceptance, healing, and moving forward. That moment worked because it was final. Bringing Rika back immediately puts that finality under a microscope. And that's why this reveal is causing so much tension in the fandom.
With Tsurugi and Maru battling it out, and Maru revealing to Tsurugi his curse technique that allowed him to control the concepts of chaos and order, flipping the entire world's gravitational pull, at least for himself and Tsurugi, by 90 degrees. However, Chapter 17 opens up with a flashback of Tsurugi's childhood. And we learn in this flashback that during Tsurugi's childhood, while Yuka and Tsurugi's mother was present in their life, their father actually left after Yuka was born. And thus there was a time during Tsurugi's childhood that became fiercely obsessed with his father, figuring out what kind of person he was, and maybe more importantly than anything, figuring out why he left. However, both Tsurugi's grandparents, that being Yuta and Maki, and his mother seemed as though they didn't want to talk about Tsurugi's father, and thus Tsurugi interviewed secretly high-up members of the Gojo family to try and figure out what kind of man his father was. And according to these interviews, Tsurugi's father was a serious and diligent man who closely resembled his father, Yuta. However, supposedly it was that very diligence that worked against him. See, apparently Tsurugi's father was obsessed with the concept of strong sorcerers. He was so fixated on...
On the surface, Rika's return looks hype. She's powerful, iconic, and deeply tied to one of the strongest characters in the series. Power scaling fans love it. Animation fans love it. Anyone who just wants bigger, crazier fights is celebrating. But storytelling isn't just about hype. It's about consequence. And this is where the debate gets serious. If Rika is truly back in a meaningful sense, then JJK risks cheapening one of its best-written arcs. Emotional sacrifices stop feeling permanent when the story reintroduces what was supposedly resolved.
Once or twice. And Tsurugi is unfortunately kind of the spitting image of the other woman that Yuta fell in love with, Maki. Now Tsurugi, while staring into the face of what can only be described as the Love Island version of the alien, says to Rika, "And you think you can win?" To which Rika responds, rather appropriately, "Foolish question." And thus Tsurugi, who really has no better options right now, simply says, "I accept." We then cut to Maru, who's staring on in terror as a silhouette amongst a burst of energy begins to appear in front of him. And that silhouette looks a whole lot like Rika. And thus Maru begins to think to himself, cursed energy, wait, there's no way, Tsurugi doesn't have cursed energy. How is he producing it? And thus with sweat running from his brow, he yells out, "Who are you?" But the answer only comes in the form of a fist to the face as Maru is blasted back into the building behind him. And it's at this point that we are served to not only one of the best single spreads in all of Majulo, but maybe one of the best single spreads in all of JJK, as we see the new form that Rika has taken on, a kind of hybrid form that ties her and Tsurugi together. Like somehow, someway, Tsurugi is hollowified using Rika. See, because what stands before Maru is Tsurugi's body, but with Rika's face and mouth and hair, basked in tendril-like cursed energy. And in response to Maru's original question, Rika simply answers, "Don't worry about me. Who are you? Yurugi? Suka? Yurugi or Suka? I actually kind of like both of those equally. I'm gonna go with Suka." And on the final page of chapter 17, we see Tsurugi telling Rika, "I appreciate you helping, but please don't talk so freely." Implying that both Tsurugi and Rika are in charge of this body, implying a completely separate kind of connection than the connection that Yuta and Rika had.
Fans argue that this version of Rika is different. A remnant, a manifestation, a shell. But narratively, that distinction doesn't erase the impact. To the audience, she's still Rika. The emotional connection doesn't disappear just because the lore changes the label. This brings us to Yuta Okkotsu, because his character is where the consequences really hit. Yuta's strength originally came from pain, fear, and unresolved trauma. His growth came from learning to let go. If Rika's presence becomes a permanent crutch again, it risks regressing his arc. Instead of a sorcerer who learned independence, he risks becoming someone whose power is once again externalized. On the other hand, and this is where defenders push back.
See, while Yuta used Rika as kind of a stand, one that he could separate from his body to attack independently, we never saw Yuta donning Rika as a cloak. Well, yes, obviously Rika was always boosting Yuta's cursed energy. The tie-in between the two of them was never nearly this symbiotic. Now, as to why Tsurugi and Rika have a different relationship than Yuta and Rika had, I can't really say. It's possible that Tsurugi's tapping into a weaker version of Rika, because her energy is being sent all the way from heaven, maybe? This is implied on account of the fact that when Tsurugi tells Rika to not talk so nonchalantly, she yells at Tsurugi saying, "Geez, how cheeky, I'll tell Yuta in heaven," which confuses even Tsurugi as he says, "Are you even the type who gets into heaven?" To which Rika responds to, with the final line of the chapter, "You're seriously pissing me off." Now, there's some things to unpack here. Like, we know that Rika wasn't able to move on to the afterlife because Yuta cursed her death when she died. And because that
Rika's return could represent something new entirely. Not obsession, not guilt, but partnership, control, acceptance without dependency. If executed carefully, this could show that growth doesn't always mean erasing the past. Sometimes it means integrating it in a healthier way. That interpretation is valid, but it demands flawless execution. And here's the problem. JJK hasn't exactly been gentle with its characters lately. Gege Akutami's recent writing direction has leaned heavily into shock, escalation, and brutality. That makes fans nervous. When a story known for emotional whiplash reintroduces a character tied to its most heartfelt moment, skepticism is justified. Is Rika back because the story needs her? Or because the power scale demanded it? Power scaling is where this conversation turns toxic fast.
she came back as a vengeful cursed spirit that stuck with Yuta until, presumably, he died. However, as that vengeful cursed spirit, her energy was tied to Yuta's ring that was passed down through his family. And seemingly, that ring is the source of her continued connection to Earth. However, this chapter is kind of revealing to us that Yuta and Rika are still able to talk, and that Rika in this chapter has returned to Earth per the request of Yuta. Now, this implies that Yuta and Rika are probably both in heaven. I'm like, well, we had like kind of an idea that an afterlife existed in JJK on account of the fact that Gojo was able to see all the people that died before him when he died. This implies that not only is there an afterlife, but also those in the afterlife are able to watch what's happening like in the before life, the life. And therefore, because Rika is a cursed spirit technically, and her energy is still tied to the ring that's passed through the Gojo clan, it seems as though Yuta was
Rika's existence immediately pushes Yuta into absurd territory again. He was already one of the strongest sorcerers alive. With Rika active, he becomes a walking nuke in a story already struggling to maintain tension. When too many characters operate at god-tier levels, danger becomes theoretical instead of emotional. JJK works best when power has cost. Gojo's strength isolated him. Sukuna's strength corrupts everything. Rika's power originally came from tragedy. If she's now just a reusable asset, that thematic weight starts to crumble. Strength without consequence is exactly what JJK used to criticize. Fans arguing that JJK has always been about breaking rules aren't wrong, but breaking rules still requires internal consistency. You can subvert expectations without undermining meaning. The concern isn't that Rika returned, it's how easily she returned. Another issue fans are dancing around is escalation fatigue. Every time the story introduces something bigger, faster, or stronger, it has to go even further next time. Rika's return raises the ceiling again, which means future conflicts have to become even more extreme to matter. That's a dangerous cycle, and shonen history is full of series that collapsed under it.
Able to request that she reappear on Earth. Now, like we teased at earlier, is this a weaker version of Rika? We can't really say. There's a lot of really big question marks around Rika's return. Hopefully, some of which will be answered in Chapter 18. But I'm curious to hear from you guys. What do you think's happening with Rika's return? Do you think she was up in heaven? Do you think she still exists as a cursed spirit? Or now her cursed energy is just being sent down from heaven? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the...
Still, it's impossible to deny the upside. Rika's presence is instantly compelling. She adds horror elements back into the story. She restores a sense of cursed unpredictability that recent arcs have leaned away from. And visually, she's one of JJK's most striking entities. From a pure entertainment standpoint, her return works. That's why this debate is so heated. Rika being back isn't objectively good or bad. It's risky. And fans hate uncertainty more than anything. Some see it as regression. Others see it as evolution. Both sides have valid points, which is exactly why this reveal is exploding discourse. The real test isn't whether Rika is back. It's what the story does with her. If she becomes a narrative shortcut, then yes, this was a mistake. If she becomes a symbol of transformed trauma rather than unresolved grief, then it could deepen JJK's themes in a way few shonen attempt. But JJK doesn't get infinite goodwill. Emotional moments only matter if the story respects their weight long-term. Rika's return puts that trust on trial. So is Rika being back good or bad? Right now it's neither. It's a gamble, one that could elevate Yuta's character to a new level, or completely undermine the emotional core that made people care about him in the first place. And that uncertainty is exactly why this reveal is tearing the fandom apart.